Our girl is destitute.
What conspiracy theory do you have?
You're the Feyre.
I'm Feyre. He hates Tamlin. He's also a bit of a petty bitch.
And yet, she decides, let me just shoot my shot and see it. I'm like, girl. Welcome to the fun section, everyone.
Woo woo! Spoiler section.
Not that the other section isn't fun, but you know, we get to talk shit in this section.
I feel like this section is like the kind of like the off the rails section.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit.
Yeah. I was telling Corryn earlier before we started recording, I'm doing funny enough we're both actually doing an ACOTAR. I can't remember if we talked about this before.
We have.
Okay, yeah, the Valkyrie training. And I am now in Blade month, which is the second month, and I did my first boxing training yesterday, and my back is feeling it. And so if you see me kind of moving a bit, it's because I am sore now.
Yeah, that'll do it. So chapter 6 ended with her finally getting a change of clothes. She's in her pants. She's in her tunic.
That's where we love all of Sarah J Maas's heroines in nice pants and tunic combo.
Exactly.
We talked about this in the non-spoiler section, but like truly, Lucien is such a sassy bitch. And I'd forgotten. I feel in all the other books, he's so serious, right? Yes. Especially like once he's like, oh, Elaine's my mate and he's trying to woo her. He gets quite serious. So it's like really fun seeing him. Obviously he's serious because of what's going on now, but like he's way more loosey-goosey. Like I feel like he can be more of himself, you know?
It's because I think he gets serious even before like him and Elaine, because it's like this combination of his, he really becomes extremely disappointed in his best friend.
Well, Feyre first. He's disappointed in Feyre first for leaving.
He's disappointed in Feyre, but then she kind of throws back this like, bro, like you saw what was happening. Like, why didn't you do anything? Yeah. And so I think like Lucien really starts, I think, going through this kind of like identity crisis situation.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially when he discovers that the Night Court isn't at all what he had been led to believe. Like there's a whole section of his life that has just been not true. And so there's so much happening there. And also the more his family gets involved with stuff, the more that brings back a lot of fucking shit. This is the Lucien that we all fell in love with.
Yeah.
Right. This is the Lucien that many girls were kind of like, what the fuck is she doing with this Tam guy? Why is she not like trying to hit this sexy ginger over here? You know, can we say that still? Is that
ginger?
Are we allowed to call redheads ginger still?
Yeah. Okay. I actually just saw, funny enough, literally yesterday, Bonnie Wright, who plays Ginny Weasley in Harry Potter, she did a TikTok with Patagonia, the drag queen, being like, we're gingers. We're like, of course we're, and it was so cute and funny. I love that they're friends.
It was really cute. I would highly recommend people looking that up because it's like, it was so adorable. I loved it too. So, okay, cool. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, this is the Lucien that we all first fell in love with. He's this super sassy. He's like goading Tam Lin on. He's trying to get Tam Lin to like compliment her, but he's also just like poking at him like, yeah, you really are not good with ladies. Like, you are just... Come on, dude, get it together.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because, like, one of the things I clocked was when he was like, your skills with females have definitely become rusty in recent decades. And it made me go, like, I'm sure Tamlin has had, obviously, I mean, we know he's had other sex partners because fucking Calamai, but, like, it made me go, like, oh, has he ever been in love with anyone else?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this right now because I think I'll probably get into it more as we, like, go through the chapters. I am now a hardcore convert. And frankly, it's because of Dee, like in her theory. I mean, it's I think a general theory, but when you told me it through her, I am convinced at this point, Elaine is not going to end up with Lucien or Asriel, and she's going to end up with Tamlin. I am convinced. I will say I'm not necessarily happy with it. I'm not unhappy with it. If you have read Throne of Glass, I think we're going to get Tamlin's version of Tower of Dawn. and that's
Yeah.
going to be ACOTAR 6 or a future ACOTAR.
I think you and I both agreed that, like, on this pod, we're fine to obviously spoil all of ACOTAR for these
Yes.
episodes particular, but we are not going to spoil Throne of Glass stuff. We're not going to spoil Crescent City stuff. We feel like that's a separate situation. But basically what Ariel's kind of saying is that it's going to be a sort of redemption story for Tamlin.
Yes.
You know, you and I have talked about this, and like I'm pretty back and forth about it. I got to say though, I'm leaning a lot more towards like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's especially doing these like a reread of A Court, I think, and it'll be interesting to watch your journey with this too, because there's a lot that you read in this book that you're just kind of like fuck, Tamlin just like guy didn't really have a ton of a chance. That's not me excusing any of his actions, but the dude was so focused on this curse and this thing.
Yes.
And again, we are two people who very much believe in two truths can exist at the same time.
Yeah.
So while the way he treats Feyre eventually in the second book is not okay, I think the dude also just like he checked the box. Mm-hmm. He got the thing done. He saved his people or found someone to save his people. And then I don't think he ever actually planned for the afterwards.
Right.
You know? And so I feel like the dude just was fucking floundering. And then when you learn about his dad and like the family that he came out of, I don't know. I'm interested to see. I'm not hating the idea of a redemption story as much as I originally did.
Same.
Mainly just because I have so much faith in Mama Maas and how she would handle it. Mama Maas is not going to be someone who is going to try to make us believe that he's like a fucking saint and he had an excuse every time and that he blah, blah, blah. Mama Maas is really big on having characters who acknowledge the wrong that they have done.
Yep.
And then gives them a way to kind of redeem themselves for the future. Not erasing the past that they have done.
Yeah, I'm in a similar place with you where like I'm not like yay Tamlin, but like I'm trusting the process if we are gonna get a Tower of Dawn like book for Tamlin, which again I'm not gonna spoil. I will say it in code, so only those who have read it will understand. But I think that's why all you need to know for those who haven't read it is Tower of Dawn is a redemption story, kind of similar to Silver Flames, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And the character who Tower of Dawn is about starts off in an almost identical position as Tamlin does, where we're rooting for that character.
Yeah.
That character fucks up spectacularly. We hate that character for like 5 books or something, 4 or 5 books.
Ariel more so than I think some others, but yeah.
I mean, I was hating on that character so much. And then I read Tower of Dawn and I was like, oh,
you're so
okay. Mad. I was mad that I was starting to like this character again. But then by the time that book finished and we got to Kingdom of Ash, I was like, okay.
Fucking A.
Mostly because, and I think this is what's going to happen with Tamlin, the character that person ends up with as like a partner is what I think redeems them. And I think we're going to get that with Tamlin is if whether or not he ends up with Elaine, which I really do think it's going to happen. I think she's going to redeem him, you know, and not in this like, I'm going to fix him sort of way. I think it's going to be a lot more nuanced than that in terms of like, I think she's going to allow him a safe space to address his wounding, right? Because, and I say this with obviously all the love of my heart for our girl Feyre, she wasn't in a position to do that. She was still fixing herself. Which isn't to say, obviously Elaine has a lot of trauma. Like, we know that, but I think and I think this is like, you know, assuming this is what's going to happen. Like, this is the brilliance of Sarah J Maas of Elaine out of the three sisters was always the one who I don't want to say she was the least traumatized, but like she was the best positioned out of the three
Yeah.
because her dad favored her. She wasn't having to go out and like support the family like Feyre did. She wasn't having to like think about like marriage in the same way that Nesta did because Nesta had to go get married first before the rest of her sisters could. Like she didn't have those responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I think it puts her in this position of being a little less traumatized in certain ways than those two were.
Yeah.
Not to say she's not traumatized, because she obviously is.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to lend herself to being able to help Tamlin if that's the story we're going to get.
Yeah.
If it's not, there's a little part of me, and I'm not going to hang my hat on this, but I'm like, what if Tamlin and Lucien end up together?
Oh, dude, that has definitely been like a theory that like people have been like passing about. Yeah,
Okay, I'm glad
Of
I'm
that
not
like
crazy.
no, of that like actually like they're just meant to be together.
Love that.
Which like I would love. I don't think she's gonna do that.
No,
Mainly
I
just
don't think
because
so.
there's not a crazy amount of groundwork that's been
No,
laid for that.
no.
And if we've learned anything about Mama Mass is that she lays down the groundwork.
Yes.
And while that would be fun,
I
I
don't think
just don't I also just don't think that we've ever been given any idea that or any inkling that like Tamlin is interested in men either. For some
yeah.
reason I have this vibe that Lucien could totally be bisexual, but
Same.
I'm
I think it's gonna be more in a this doesn't spoil anything, so I'm gonna say their names. I think it's in a like Kale, Dorian, bro kind of way
oh,
of like
100%.
is
Yeah.
kind of are in love, but like not actually.
No,
You
it's
know what
well,
I mean?
it's the friendship love. It's
The
the like
bromance.
yeah. So while I would love that, I don't think that would happen. But one of the things that also makes me feel like weirdly like Elaine and Tamlin could end up together
Yeah.
is that, and I'm trying to find like a really good way to phrase this, but I don't think Tamlin wants that woman who's gonna go out and fight in the battles.
No, I know exactly what
And
you're
and
saying.
and I think Elaine, she's not that person.
No.
I think Elaine fights in her own way.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that Elaine, she fights for her rebellion is happiness.
Yeah.
Like her
Whoa.
rebellion, yeah. Her rebellion was, yeah, I'm gonna get in the dirt when I'm rich as fuck. I'm gonna get in the
Yeah.
dirt and I'm going to create beauty.
Yes.
And I'm gonna become best friends with these two wraiths.
Yeah.
And we're gonna bake bread. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna feed the rebels.
Yes.
I'm gonna
Yes.
feed, I'm gonna so that's her way of fighting. That's her
Yeah.
way. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need those people.
No.
We can't have
Yeah.
everyone being the ones to run into the fields, like and to battle. And I think Tamlin, he wants from the vibe we get from him, I
Yep.
think he wants more of that type of person. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
be worrying about his loved one running into the battle. That's not his style. That's not what he wants. And that's why that second book is so difficult because the
Yeah.
new person that Feyre is not that person who's just going to stay home and paint. She can't do that.
Right.
But Elaine will stay home and take care of her garden and bake bread and make food for her loved ones. She's a caretaker. That matches way more with who Tamlin is and who
Yeah.
he wants. And that's I hope that does not come across as if like I'm dissing Elaine in some way
No.
because it's like it's necessary. We need those people too. They are also just as important as the person who's going to run out with a sword, you know?
Well, I think I'm so glad you brought this up because, like, obviously, and it's like blatantly clear, Sarah J Maas has talked about it, like, these books are feminist, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget that feminism is about choice,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
She is choosing. It reminds me almost of like, I know, like, there's not really witches. I don't think there's witches in ACOTAR, but like, it reminds me of almost like a kitchen witch or like a
Yeah.
green witch,
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
it's a form of rebellion through kind of like domestic work, right?
Yeah.
And like that can be feminist when it is a 100% full choice. And Elaine very clearly makes that
She
choice.
makes that choice. That is,
and that's what makes it feminist.
yeah,
And I
that is,
love that.
yes, exactly. Yeah, like we're feminism doesn't mean that we think everyone that we should hate all men
No.
and that we just want to take over men's roles. And no, it's the concept of choice. It's the concept
Yes.
of that you should be able to be whoever you want to be. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Because also I as we see in the later books, like she like steps to Nesta, who is scary. And
Yeah.
so like Elaine can do that. Like Elaine, as much as she drives me crazy for a lot of the series, she kind of proves like I've just been quiet because you two are enough.
Yeah.
And there's no point in me getting in the middle of this shit.
Yep.
So I believe that Elaine could kind of smack Tamlin around a little bit, but in her way, in the way that she
Yeah.
would do it, which might be a smidge kinder than Feyre.
Oh,
Like,
a smidge?
yeah, but
A
it's
lot.
just like I think there could be this very beautiful thing. And honestly, as I'm talking right now, I'm like kind of getting excited about this
I know, me
possibility.
too.
Right? Like, I don't know, it's weird. It's kind of what I think you and I talked about before too, is that it's like when you like I'm interested to see how you feel if you do a third or fourth reread of this book.
Yeah. Oh, I probably will.
Because I think I told you about how I've now read it so many times that I've gone past the point of like hating Tamlin and kind of coming to this space of just like really pitying the fuck out of him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it actually brings up something that I forgot what you said, but it reminded me of this. I think the reason it makes so much sense for me for those two to end up together is they're both people whose like passion is caring. Like they need someone to care for and who will
Ooh.
allow them to care for them. And that's why Tamlin and Feyre do not work. Feyre's like, I need to go out and like be my own savior, right? And Rhys allows her to do that, right? They match each other's freak, right?
Yeah.
Elaine she cares for her dad in her own way. She cares for her family in her own way. Tamlin tries to and if you think about it, like when Elaine tries, like when she tries to care for Nesta, Nesta doesn't allow her to.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't think she could ever really get away with caring for Feyre in the way she wants to care for Feyre,
Yeah.
right? Same with Tamlin. Like Feyre won't let him. So I think like they both have the same energy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
In terms of like they're gonna allow each other to care for each other.
Yeah.
God, now I'm getting
I know.
I
I'm
can't
like,
believe it.
I know. It's so. I remember the first time I brought up this concept to you, like we both were like, "Ugh, no,
And now I'm
gross.
like, give
This
it.
is fucking awful." And now I'm like, I want to read it. I want that experience.
Especially because like I actually saw a really interesting post. I can't remember if I sent it to you the other day. It was on Instagram about it's like a chunk of text, I forgot from which book, and it was about Elaine and Asriel, and then another chunk of text from Silver Flames about Gwen and Asriel. And it was talking about how like Asriel was like feeling it was like kind of almost from his like perspective of like and I don't know if this was a bonus chapter or if it was in like Frost. It must have been Frost and Starlight or something.
No, I bet it was
third
one
person.
of the bonus chapters because I keep
Might
forgetting
have
that
been.
I gotta like find those and send them.
I gotta read them. But he was talking about like how he had done so many horrible things that he felt unworthy about even be able to touch Elaine or be around Elaine. And it was this like very self-loathing feeling versus when he was with Gwen, it was like he was totally at ease. He felt like he could accept himself, right?
Yeah.
I think Az is going to end up with Gwen, not
I do
Elaine.
too.
And oh my god, I mean, there's a whole like necklace gate thing, like everything. So there's
Well,
that.
I prefer that. But yes, please continue.
Same. And then with Lucien, like she's just clearly not into Lucien, right? So it's like, why would we want her to end up with someone she doesn't want to be with? All this to say, we should probably get back to the chapters at hand.
Fuck.
The whole reason this got brought up is Lucien was making fun of Tamlin, was like saying like, you've gotten rusty with the females.
Yeah.
And it just made me think like, oh, I wonder if Tamlin has ever had any other like actual lovers, which like if we get a Tamlin redemption book, maybe we'll find out, you know?
Yeah.
Lucien just being, actually, no. We talked enough about Lucien being a sassafras.
Well, but I mean, come on, for our spoiler friends, like what a fucking sassy little broad. Like it's sort of that thing too of like when you meet someone's friends and if you
Yeah.
like their friends. And I do
Mhm.
know that like that's one of the things that always kind of made me like hang on to Tamlin a little bit longer
Was
was
Lucian.
because of Lucian. And
Yeah.
also when you discover more and more, Feyre asks him about his eye.
Yeah, she does. And
And
he
and she's like, "Did Tamlin do that to you?" And he was like, "Oh, absolutely not, but he was there to help me and save me." That's such a great moment of like you learn all this stuff more of like, okay, like Tamlin, like he is actually
he's kind of decent.
he proves this wrong, but
Yeah.
especially when we find out more of what really happened to Lucian with his dad and his last love and all of this stuff and how like
Yeah.
Tamlin's the one who kind of like comes sort of raging in. I mean, right now in the book he's being a dick to
But in a
Feyre,
fun way.
but you slowly learn that that's actually like kind of his love language.
One thing the bone I have to pick with Lucian in this, as fun as he can be, is and it's both with him and Tamlin, honestly, but a little more Lucian. But both of these guys know she is there. Like they are literally using her as a way to break this curse.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just so funny with me with Lucian in particular, because he'll have these moments in these chapters where he'll clearly, again, I said this in the first half, he's like Tamlin's Lumiere, right?
Yeah.
Of like, hey, hit on her. You should say how pretty she is, right? But then, like, in the same breath, he'll like completely shit on Feyre. And I'm like, are you trying
Bro.
to
Yeah.
keep her here? Or are you trying to drive her away? Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing? And like, I get she killed your friend, but also, your friend volunteered to die. Like, we knew this was the case. You can't really get mad at her when you set her up. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, come on. Like,
Yeah, totally. It also makes me wonder if Lucian was just kind of like, no, she's not gonna be the one. We need to find somebody
mm,
else. Like this is not
yeah.
gonna happen. Like almost like frustration of like, we can't waste time on this girl. Like we need to get rid of her.
Maybe. But the thing is, like, she's the one and only who's come this far. And so it's
Yeah.
like, baby boy, we don't have any other options, because the next person going out and being the new Andres who's going to die will be you. There's
Yeah.
no one else left to sacrifice
That's
themselves.
very true. Well,
So,
then maybe here's another little possibility. Maybe he's trying to make Tamlin look good by being the dick.
oh, interesting tactic.
It's an interesting tactic. I'm feel like I'm grasping at straws here. But, you know,
It's possible. All I'll say is I wrote somewhere in my notes, he is the worst fucking wingman.
oh yeah,
Like,
he's
Lucian
really
is a
bad. He's a
terrible
really bad
wingman.
wingman because like although like he's bad, no, he's bad. Because I feel like any of like the kind of complimentary stuff that comes out about Tamlin like later, you're
Yeah.
just like he kind of just like like
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, Tamlin's like super powerful. Only Tam can do it. But
Yeah.
then he kind of like moves on and you're just like, wait, bro, like
You
what?
could have expanded. Like,
Really could have expanded there, homie.
hype him up. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. Speaking of Tamlin, now that we got all the somewhat nice things to say out about him, I'm gonna shit talk him because it's one
Oh
of
my
my favorite
God.
pastimes.
Well, but there's so many little moments in these next couple chapters that I'm just like, oh God,
The
dude.
first for me, and this really highlighted for both Tamlin and Lucian, but especially Tamlin, the difference between Tamlin and his friends and Rhys and his friends. Okay,
Oh yeah.
on page 60. It's when Tamlin's serving her food, forcing her to eat, which, like, look, I get she's starving, but, like, also, come on. Put some food on her plate, and he goes, it's an honor for a human to be served by a high fae. And I'm just like, no one gives a fuck. Like, she doesn't even know you're a fucking high lord yet. Like, you
Yeah.
haven't even told her that. Versus Rhys, and his friends, who genuinely seem to care about her. Like, she's only known Moore for like a fucking week before Moore comes and rescues her, right? Like, it's a world of difference. And again, I love Lucian. Like, do not get me wrong. Like, I love Lucian, but like, it just, I think it's more so to say, like, how well Sarah J Maas sets up the series, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you're someone who hasn't really known definitely romantic love, right,
Mm,
before, and you find your first person who isn't necessarily the best person for you, you kind of take any crumbs you can get and you think this is love, right?
yeah.
Until you actually find the person who gives you real love. And you can really if once you've read the whole series and you go back to this book, you really see that difference.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you
So,
absolutely you like you really do. I mean, oh god, I can't stop this little devil's advocate in my brain at all.
it's why we love you though.
Yeah, but it's like the more example is a woman coming to rescue another woman. There is sort
Sure.
of a unspoken, I think, vow amongst many of us. Also, that's after she has gotten all those people out from under the mountain.
True.
So there is a bit of a level here. And like when we first meet Reese, he is a fucking cocky bastard. Yes, he's playing a part.
Yes.
But like honestly, I wouldn't put it past Reese if he were to make this same fucking snide comment. Like
To be fair, Reese does make her right. Reese is the best High Lord like a million
he's the
fucking
most
times.
handsome man.
It's in
Yeah.
a funny way. It's in a very, like, the way I read it, and maybe it's because I read the audiobooks, like, there might be a difference there, but the way I it's in this way of, like,
Oh, he's very
I'm messing with you.
oh, he's very purposely trying to piss her off. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
No, no,
Whereas,
no.
like,
Like yeah,
Tamlin said this with his full fucking
with his
chest,
full chest. Yeah.
believing it.
As we see the two different characters, Reese and Tam, it's like Tamlin is far more obsessed with hierarchy, with the power there.
Yeah.
He is far more obsessed with that kind of stuff. I mean, look, he thought there'd be no way for there to ever be a high lady.
Yeah.
Reese didn't give a fuck. Tam is just he's far more obsessed with that kind of stuff. So it kind of makes it feels on brand that he's gonna be like, you should be like fucking thankful because I'm so powerful and I gave you food.
I think it's also why it's funny to me, like, when people hate on Reese and they're like, "He's so image obsessed," and I'm like, "He's actually not when you think of like, sure, he knows he's pretty. Like, they kinda all do. Like, you could say the same of, like, Helion or Tarquin or any of the High Lords,
Mm.
any of the Fae, right? But, like, he doesn't actually care all that much about image. Like, the townhouse, like, he could be living in the House of Wind. He's like, "I'd rather live in this smaller townhouse," right?
Yeah, it's
Like,
cozy.
that's
It's
yeah, I only
easy for
have
people to come to me. Yeah.
right. It's like he only has the House of Wind because he has to, and then he gifts it to Nesta and Cassian, you know? Like, whereas Tamlin is all about the appearance of being a High Lord. It's like, it's why he keeps the tradition of the fucking tithing, right? Which
Yeah.
is like blatantly corrupt.
Yeah.
So
Very
I think
blatantly corrupt.
I think that's what's interesting. The other stark difference to me in terms of like Tamlin versus Reese, like, you know, Feyre's kind of first impressions of them is on page 60. I forgot exactly what the context is, but she says, oh, I think she like moves away from him or something like that during dinner. She says, anything to keep him well away from me. She
Yeah.
just wants to be physically away from him.
Yeah.
Whereas when she meets Reese, she's like, she literally is like, it's the most beautiful man I've ever
Most
seen.
beautiful man
Like,
I've ever seen.
even
Yeah.
though she knows in later when she hears all about him, she's like,
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't be near this guy, but she keeps getting drawn to him.
Yeah. There's a pull. There's a
There's
pull
a
there,
pull.
which
And
like,
what's the bond?
yeah, exactly. She goes, I didn't realize I was under house arrest. And he's like, of course you're not under house arrest.
Yet.
Just sitting and like when I read this moment, I was just like, oh my God, the
Mm-hmm.
foreshadowing. Dude, you
Mm-hmm.
fucking put her under house arrest. Like, ouch. It is so crazy how when you first read this book, you're very much just like, oh, this guy, he's just kind of like a scared leader.
Yeah. He
And
cares though.
and he's been brought up in this Fey world, so he doesn't know he's not ready to trust her yet, but he also doesn't want her to be killed. So of course he's a little harsh, he's a little push and pull. And then when you read it now, you're just like, this guy has been controlling from the very beginning. I think this kind of shows the power of like romanticy, enemies to lovers trope that we're all
Yeah.
super used to. a lot of these red flags get completely, you forget about a lot of them because you're just
Yeah.
so used to this kind of trope.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's actually wildly clever of SJM
Yeah.
because she sticks you in this fantasy trope. Like you and I have talked about how this first book is very much a fairy tale and you
Yes.
get stuck in that headspace. She kind of like broadens your mind in the other books where you're just like, whoa, okay, all right, queen, like you put me along this one path.
Yeah. She subverts the genre.
I kind of want to like subvert us a smidge because there was one thing that I thought was really interesting. It's the next day, sweet baby Alice got stuck in the trap that
Oh,
Feyre made.
yes.
God bless her. And it's when she looks at her reflection. Feyre looks at her own
Yeah.
reflection. It wasn't pleasing, though not for its actual appearance.
Yeah.
While my nose was relatively straight, it was the other feature I'd inherited from my mother. I could still remember how her nose would crinkle with feigned amusement when one of her fabulously wealthy friends made some unfunny joke. At least I had my father's soft mouth, though it made a mockery of my two sharp cheekbones and hollow cheeks. I couldn't bring myself to look at my slightly up-tilted eyes. I knew I'd see Nesta or my mother looking back at me. And she kind of says something else. And she's like, I bore too much of the people we'd hated and loved for Nesta to stand it, for me to stand it too. This moment for me is, it's a really interesting discussion of appearance
Yeah.
because she's not saying that she is unattractive.
No.
And she even says, I was a far cry from ugly.
Yes.
But she's saying that when she looks at herself, all she sees is her cold mother and her weak father
Yep.
and Nesta's hatred.
Mm-hmm.
That's all she sees. And
And
just
it's
like
interesting she doesn't bring Elaine into it either.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
she's missing. I wanted to originally bring that up in the non-spoiler section as well. And I wrote down like it really gets to the kind of the meat of the problem in the family. It's kind of this form of self-loathing
Yeah.
that Farrah has, but not because she hates who she is. And
Yeah.
I don't want to say she hates who her family is because she clearly loves them, but like she sees all of their flaws in herself,
Yeah.
right? It's a very toxic cycle,
Yeah.
really. And I think that is part of what makes this series so beautiful is
Mm.
I think, obviously for understandable reasons, so much of the discussions around the series is the romantic relationships
Mm-hmm.
that all the characters have. But what doesn't get talked enough about is the healing familial
Mm.
relationships between the sisters,
Mm.
right? Like that is some like deep, deep trauma, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's a really relatable thing,
Yep.
you know? And I just love that it gets brought up and then we get to see how she then we'll see in later books. I don't know if she ever like embraces those things she eventually, she talks about in this part, but we see how she heals with Nesta and even kind of makes peace with her mom's legacy, right?
Yeah.
Or her dad. So, yeah.
I highly relate to this idea of having
Yeah.
aspects of yourself that look like someone that you don't like or
Yeah.
respect. And it's a complicated relationship. I also think that this moment kind of brings up something for me that I really forgot, which was how much Feyre talks about Nesta when Nesta is not there at all.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
cuz I started having this moment when we were rereading this where I was like, if this is the only time we're with Nesta, like why do many of the fans, why do we create such a level, or not create, why do we feel such a high level of dislike for this person?
Yep.
And yeah, Nesta will come back in again later in this book, but even later in this book, she's actually kind of cooler than you expect her to be because she's the only one who like popped out of the spell. I was so like, how do we develop this? And I realized it's because since we are with Feyre in her head,
She talks about her
she
so
thinks
much.
about Nesta so much. And
Yep.
I also honestly think and I feel like this could be an interesting statement to kind of say to you, but I think it really shows because I'm the baby in my family. I
I
think
knew
it
you were gonna
really,
bring this up.
yeah, I think
Yep.
it really shows the power that the eldest sister can have
Yeah.
without even like fully realizing it. I mean, I know
Mhm.
you're very aware of like the kind of mantle that you carry
Yeah.
with you and your sister. But I just think there's a level of it that like you, Ariel, will never fully be able to understand. And
No.
I just think it's this really, really fascinating moment of like, fuck, she is thinking about her older sister constantly.
It's so baked into being the eldest, I'm gonna say sibling, but I think in particular sister
Mhm.
because and I mean, there's been entire things written about the eldest daughter of a family. It's because women are expected to be the caretakers,
Right.
right? Um, and no matter how good of an older sister you are, like there is there's always going to be feelings I think from the younger siblings about that.
Yeah.
And I think it's understandable why, right?
Yeah.
Like I think and I think that's why it's so wonderful we get Nesta's perspective in Silver Flames. And I actually would argue I think that's why Nesta crashes the fuck out
Yeah.
because she does have all those expectations placed on her. I don't think that's the sole reason, but I think it's a big part of it is like I think Nesta is just kind of like done,
Yeah.
right? Like she's like lived so much in a lot of ways for mostly Elaine,
Yeah.
honestly. She loses herself,
Yes.
right? And I don't want to get too much in Silver Flames, but like, because I could go on about it, but like, I think you're so right. Like, it makes a lot of sense that Feyre would feel this way about Nesta throughout not just this book, but pretty much
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think now what this is gonna do is like this is gonna cause me to kind of almost like clock every single time she thinks about Nesta. And I really think that we're gonna notice that it is a lot
Yeah.
because we are so close to that name for
Yes.
her really not wildly like I mean, she's not really a character again till the third book.
Yeah, like a prominent
Like a
yeah, I
prominent
mean
like she actually
yes.
has, like, a ton of dialogue and, like, she's,
Right.
like, about, you know? And even then she's, but still it's kinda crazy, because it just shows how often she's thinking about her, and it's just
Yeah.
pretty wild.
One thing I wanna talk about while we're still in this chapter, I wanna go back to Tamlin a little bit. Me being me. So it's the part where he says, "I don't care if you go live anywhere else in Prithian, but if you cross the wall, if you flee, your family will no longer be cared for." I know, and I know what we talked about in the non-spoiler section, but this is straight up emotional abuse. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it is because the thing is like he brought her there for a specific purpose. And I know he can't tell her what that purpose is. That's not his fault. I get that. But you can't be like, okay, you can have this bit of freedom, but the second you go and do something anyone would want to do, you're going to take all away from your family. Like that is emotional abuse. And this is why I can't get on board with Tamlin as he is now.
Yeah.
Like the other thing I clocked was he kind of love bombs her in a bit. Like he gives her the food, right? He's like,
Mhm.
"Let me pile on this food for you." She eats it. She's like, "Okay, actually I am hungry." She goes for more and then it disappears when he decides, "Oh no, you've had enough." Like that is textbook love bombing emotional abuse.
Yeah.
He even says like, "One more bite and you'll hurl your guts up." You don't know that, Tamlin. Like she's been starving.
Yeah.
Like she needs to put some meat on her bones. Like, and I think it's those moments. Like there are certain things that are excusable, right?
Yeah.
Like that we've talked about, but that just isn't. And I
Yeah.
think it goes back to what I was saying earlier of like the purpose of this book within the entire series is to show this is what love the trappings of what a good relationship looks like
Yeah.
versus what an actual good relationship looks like, which is
Yeah.
what she has with Rhys.
Yeah. There is always the thing where when you first eat after you've been starving, you shouldn't eat too much because you
Sure.
actually will hurt yourself. But it's more of like, you're right, how he doesn't know her body. How does
Yeah.
he know? You know,
Yeah.
it's also just another aspect of like control,
Yes.
which I think, you know, we've obviously seen that Tamlin is very intense about control. So, I mean, I also think that this is a lot of this chapter so specifically is like the most Beauty and the Beast of like the entire series.
Yeah.
And honestly, if people are reading these books or this one specifically for like a classic retelling of Beauty and the Beast, like this chapter is kind of the only one you're going to get, honestly. And then the
Yeah.
rest of it is like a light suggestion. It's not, you know
Yes.
what I mean? Like,
Well, especially Under the Mountain. Like,
yeah, because I've seen some of the reviews where people are like, hate the book because they went into it being like, oh, I thought it was a Beauty and the Beast book. And you're like, I can see you hating the book if this is what you thought you were getting.
apparently her initial, like, I'm retelling these stories. It was Beauty and the Beast, the tale of Tamlin, which is, I believe, a Gaelic
Yeah.
folk tale. And this is the new one for me, the story of Hades and Persephone.
Whoa.
Yeah. Which I was like, okay, that puts a lot more into context,
That puts
especially
a
like
lot more into context.
the spring court, like the fact that Persephone is she embodies spring, yada, yada, yada.
The house arrest.
Truly. And Rhys being from the night court,
Yeah,
like,
this is all, yeah.
it all makes sense. So there's that. But then, and I'm so on this theory. It actually goes back to the Tamlin and Elaine theory. Some people think if Tamlin and Elaine are endgame for each other, that's going to be the actual retelling, like the real retelling
That's
of
going
Beauty
to
and
be
the
the
Beast.
real Beauty and the Beast.
Because think about it. He's been in beast form for like
Yeah.
2 fucking books.
Yeah.
And the story of Beauty and the Beast, I mean, the story officially starts when he's like the prince, right? But like the story gets started when he has been in beast form for like years.
Yeah.
There is one last thing I wanted to bring up, which is when she's talking to Alice, she asks her, "What is this place? Where is this place?" And Alice says, "It's safe, and that's all you need to know." And it makes me wonder, like, okay, everyone here living with Tamlin knows why Feyre is there, right? And presumably, once she breaks, like, let's pretend the Under the Mountain stuff never happens. They're clearly not planning for the Under the Mountain stuff to happen because,
No.
yeah. In theory, if she were to break the curse the way it was originally set forth, she falls in love with Tamlin, and she either stays with him or she goes off in Prythian elsewhere. So I'm kind of like, why are they all being so shady about telling her like where she is? It's like she's gonna live out the rest of her life here anyway, so why not just tell her? Like, it's very, and again, I think it goes back to what you said. It's about control, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I can see why Alice doesn't, because she probably doesn't know if it's okay to tell her, but like, why isn't Tamlin or Lucien telling her, you know? Like,
Well, okay. It really, I mean, to me, it goes into
devil's advocate time.
No, actually,
Oh,
not at all. To me,
oh,
it goes into the whole overall thing where if you really get too fucking logical about this, there wouldn't be a book, right? So like
right.
I have this moment every now and then where I'm like, okay, no one could tell her about the curse.
Right.
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 I feel like they could probably tell her a lot of fucking shit. They told her about they could tell her about the blight. They could
Yep.
tell her about the masks, which
Yes.
they do. If they
Yeah.
could do that, you could tell her like, okay, spring, like here are all the courts.
Well,
You
she
could
finds out
tell
eventually
her,
before she goes under the mountain.
yeah,
She does know eventually.
but it's more like, okay, if you were in a situation and some dude was trying to get you to fall in love with him, don't you think you'd fall in love with him faster if he told you a shit ton of stuff
Yes.
about his
That's what I'm
situation,
saying.
about where he was, about
Yes.
all this as much as he possibly could?
That's what I'm saying. Is like, why is he not go and truly, like Lucien says, he must be fucking rusty with women at this point, because why is Tamlin not going, hey baby, I'm the High Lord of the Spring Court.
Yeah.
Like, I own this shit.
Yeah.
Like, look how beautiful it is. You can spend the rest of your days with this hot piece of ass who rules these lands. Like, why is he not doing that?
Well, and then also like the sympathy card of just like
Yes.
there's this really evil lady and
Yes.
like I kind of need help.
Yeah. I can't tell you how, because I'm literally cursed and can't.
And he can't even say he's cursed. Like that's part of the curse too,
Right.
right? Is he can't even
True.
say any of that. And okay, but this is more what I mean of like when you get to logic, which I
Yeah.
do, you know I do,
Yes.
and we both do.
Same. Writer.
If we go too far, there wouldn't be a book.
Right.
Or we wouldn't have the character that is Tamlin. So it's
Of
like
course.
every now and then I have to like stop myself because it's kind of like, you know, like if Frodo and Sam took the Eagles to Mordor,
Yes.
there would be there'd be no books, there'd be no movie.
No.
It's that kind of like weird like fine line that you have to like
Yes.
find. But yes, in the world of just like yes, come on. Like if you were more honest with her, this maybe would have happened like a lot fucking faster.
Well, and again, I think this actually is, funny enough, a testament to Mama Mass's writing, because it's like there's all these very obvious things that we can see, right, that he should be doing, and yet he's not, which speaks volumes about Tamlin as a character.
Truth.
Right?
That's a very good point.
Like, and I think, again, assuming, I really believe we're going to get a redemption story from him. I really do, regardless if he ends up with the lane or not.
Yeah.
I think that she is laying the groundwork for all that, right? Of like, buddy, why didn't you do it this way? You could have made life easier for you and everyone around you.
It's like, no, actually it was all part of the like overall plan for you.
Yes.
Really. I still feel like it's so wild to think that his powers are diminished during this time, because the amount of powerful things we see him do before the Under the Mountain stuff, it's just like, fuck,
crazy.
Dude. It's like,
well,
scary.
And it makes you that much madder that he does nothing under that fucking mountain. Like,
no, I'm just gonna pull her into a fucking little like fucking broom closet and we're gonna make out. Oh my
God. No, and it's funny when we mentioned, you know, at the beginning of the last episode, or the non-spoiler episode, like, you know, his nickname being Tam Tam, but there's other nicknames we can't talk about yet. I remember, and this is before I started to like really see a ton of memes. It was, I think, when I was reading like Mist and Fury, and like we realized like she wasn't gonna end up with Tamlin. I was like, fucking tampon. But you know what? Tampons at the very least are useful, so we shouldn't even call them that. I hadn't seen that meme yet.
Yeah.
I thought like I came up with that, and then I saw it everywhere. I'm like, it just proves to you how universal that thought is once you get to that part. Like, at least a tampon can fucking staunch one of her wounds from under the mountain. Like,
dude. Ugh. Okay, but actually, this is actually one of my issues. The blight. Okay, maybe I do have a problem with this, because is it actually a blight, or is it just a curse that Amarantha has put on everybody?
It's a curse. It's a curse. I get why, like,
so, but like, is this a part of his curse where he can't call it a curse?
I think so. I think it, when Alice does that whole like info dump like halfway through the book when she comes back, I think she says, or at the very least implies, like he can't even call it a curse.
Okay.
I think that's when he's getting too close to like, well, and then, but that brings up, and one thing I don't think they ever explain is like, what happens if he tries? Like, is there like a physical, like he physically cannot say the words? Is he like hurt if he like, what happens if he tries to say, hey, I'm under this curse?
Well, I actually do think we get a moment of that more because I think Alice tries to tell her more, and I think she like loses her ability to talk.
Right. Yeah.
And I might be pulling that out of my ass. I'm not sure. But for some reason it feels right.
If it's not Alice, it's someone for sure. Maybe Lucien, but I think you're right. I think it's Alice. And then, yeah, because the only reason Alice is able to finally tell her is it's past when the curse ends. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But there's still aspects like the heart thing. she can't
Right.
tell her.
Which, like, that's where it gets a little, we'll get to that when we get to that chapter, is like, but if it's over, why can't she tell her?
So this is what I'm saying
Yeah.
then, though, is that it's like, is Tamlin's, and you're right, we should probably save this kind of theory moment until we're really in that, because then we can really unpack it. But
Right.
that's my question. So I'm really excited for when we get to this Alice portion.
I know.
Because, which it's going to be forever from now, but because I feel like his curse and then the overall Amarantha, everyone else curse, they're like separate.
They have to be.
But
They kind of have to be, but they're the same.
Okay. I think we're going to have to put a pin in this.
I want to talk about something in chapter 8.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so she says, this is when she's talking about like coming back, I think, after her little walk in the garden, and she realizes, oh, I only have to have dinner with them. She says, 3 meals a day with Tamlin and Lucien would have been torturous. I can endure an hour of sitting at their fancy table if it made them think I was docile and had no plans to change my fate. It's just like, yet again, example after example after example of her and Tamlin clearly not being good for each other. Like, the fact that she describes eating a delicious meal with him as torturous. That is a very strong word. And mind you, says Lucien too, whatever. But like, come on. Like, even in, and maybe I'm wrong, but in Mist and Fury, when she has to go stay with Rhys for a week at a time, I don't think she ever comes close to calling it torturous, right? Like,
she throws a shoe at him.
But that's not torturous. Like, that's her just being pissed off, being like, fuck you, asshole.
No, I mean, I think you're bringing up a good point in that I think Mama Maas is being very purposeful with her word choices.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Because it's going to be interesting. I'm glad you brought this up, because I now realize that I'm going to be far more I'm going to be far more aware of the adjectives she uses for when she's around Rhys, because I do think that Mama Maas is being very purposeful with her choices, with her word choices here. Because I am very curious now of like, I mean, for instance, when like Rhys basically has her like, when he kind of starts like threatening her later when he comes to the spring court and he finds her like behind Lucien, because she is being threatened in that moment. And how does she feel? Like, so that'll be really interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's going to be interesting to look at like the vocabulary that is used around these characters, the magic trick that is this book in general.
Yes.
You know, this is a magic trick that she pulls off.
Yes.
Like, honestly, it feels a lot like Fight Club. Like, I'm not joking.
Corryn,
seriously?
Girl. I kid you not. So
I'm so excited.
I wrote down it was when they're talking about Feyre's love life, right? And they asked like, and do you love anyone else? I said like, Feyre had the best clap back. She said, these lethal immortal beings really having nothing better to do than this. Is this really what you care about to know about me? If I find you more handsome than human men, and if I have a man back home, I wrote, this feels like going back and watching Fight Club and being like, oh my God, they totally hinted at Tyler Durden not being real the entire time. Like, what? And I even thought, as I was saying that, I'm like, well, what if people haven't seen Fight Club and I'm giving it away? I'm like, no, it's like a 20-year-old movie. It's fine.
Oh my God,
whatever.
okay.
Like,
I love this so much, because literally, oh my God, I'm now kind of want to go to other fans and be like, is this just like a canon event for all of us? Because
I think
seriously,
it is.
when I first reread this one, I literally was like, this fucking feels like Fight Club, because there are signs everywhere for what's happening, for what the situation is, for who Tamlin is going to end up being. There's so like, I mean, how often his claws are out because he's fucking mad. His claws were out because Feyre went on a horseback like scout with Lucien. Dude, calm the fuck down, bro. Like, oh my God.
And they say women are too emotional.
Dude. And so it's just, oh God. So I'm like, okay, because when you first read it, you're so in it. You're so just like, oh, he's just an angry boy. That's why his claws are out. Hot. Like, we love him. Like he's just complicated.
Yep.
And then after the second book, you're just like, this dude has been controlling and has had anger issues from the fucking beginning. He's problematic. He has been trying to figure out if she can be this like love curse breaker person for him from the very fucking beginning. Like,
Yep.
oh God, I'm so happy that moment just happened.
Phrasing it, the way you phrase it, like this is a magic trick, is so perfect because it is.
Yeah.
Like it's literally Sarah J Maas pulling a rabbit out of the hat and being like, just kidding, this isn't a rabbit, this is actually like a dove.
And you
know,
actually knew it was a dove the entire time.
The entire time.
Surprise.
Yeah, it's sleight of hand.
So one of the things that I kind of wanted to go on a little bit, we're at another dinner. This is after she stole the knife. And it says, while Lucien ranted to Tamlin about some malfunction of the magical carved eye that indeed allowed him to see.
You love this eye.
Love this eye. Well, because also, don't we meet the woman who made his eye later in the series?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, in I think Wings and Ruin.
But so I love this conversation of like his eye malfunctioning, because I just like have this thought, because like this lady, she's like not close to them at all.
No,
Like,
they have to like fetch her.
Anytime his like eye gets fucked up,
She has to go.
Where does he go? What does he do?
Yeah, because they in the Spring Court they can't winnow.
No, they can't.
It's just the Night Court.
So it's just like what happens?
Oh my God.
Was he just like sitting there and just like oiling his eye, just like praying that like it'll start like working or whatever? And I think also just the concept that it malfunctions.
Yeah.
I think there's moments in this book where there's these really, really cool alchemy moments where it's science and magic like come together. And that's what I feel like his eye is.
Okay, Thor.
Yeah. Yeah, just proving that right, aren't I? Just another. So I just feel like there's a really interesting like there's not much more I really want to say about it, just besides the fact that like when I read that moment I was like, oh yeah, we meet that lady. Okay, and then one more thing in chapter 8. Didn't your mother tell you anything about us? Have you seen some of the theories?
No. Wait, so there's
some gross ones.
That
There's some theories that Elaine is actually Tamlin's daughter.
Nope, don't like that.
That's why there's a tie. Not that they'll have a love connection, but like that's why Elaine looks a little. She has like bigger eyes. She has like kind of all this stuff.
I hate it. But okay, speaking of mom theories, though, there's a theory that Gwen's dad is Tamlin. Yeah. Because, and I'll briefly summarize, and I actually think this is a real possibility.
Yeah,
in
I do
Silver
too.
Flames, Gwen talks about how her and her twin, which I always forget she has a twin, their mother was like, I think a water wraith or something like that.
She's a water nymph.
Water nymph.
Yeah.
And they don't know who her dad is. All they know is her mom went to Calanmai and was part of the Great Rite. And her sister were born. They're like 20-something. Meaning that happened during the events of Under the Mountain, which leaves only Tamlin as the only High Lord. I mean, also, he's the only High Lord who partakes in the actual, like, the Great Rite itself. Like, everyone else can go and fuck if they want to, but that's not considered the Great Rite.
Yep.
So that, I think, is a real possibility if we're talking mom theories here.
Yeah, no. I'm, like, really excited to see, like, what theories will never actually like what theories will be proven correct or incorrect, or what theories will never get an answer.
No.
Like I'm very interested to see like where we land on some of this stuff. There's another thing that happened in this section of chapters that we never talked about in the spoiler free section, but we get some of our first by the Cauldron moments.
I wrote that down and I forgot to bring it up. No, I know. I think it's Alice who says it.
Alice says it first time. And then Lucien says it in another chapter. Yeah. And it's one of our first kind of Cauldron moments. Yeah. And Feyre doesn't clock. She doesn't really. It doesn't say that Feyre clocks it or anything. No. But it's just like. And I'm also curious on how it was in the audiobooks, because in the written book, it's capitalized, so you get a vibe. Of this is kind of like
some godlike thing. Yes.
And so I just think that that's fun, and I'm excited because I miss reading people say by the Cauldron or stuff like that. So it was like this weird
I
like warmth in my
know.
heart when I saw it. I was like, "Oh, we're
So
home."
good. We're back. I mean, and it's the reason we named this podcast Cauldron Save Us, right?
Exactly.
Like it's the saying.
Exactly.
Um, I do want to get to chapter
Yeah.
9. So this goes back to they're talking about like Lucian's telling Feyre about how Tamlin, and we talked about this a little bit in the non-spoiler section about how Tamlin can shapeshift not only himself but his friends, right? Or whoever he chooses.
Yeah.
So this goes back to my Elaine Tamlin endgame theory,
Yeah.
right? I'd forgotten because I actually originally the note I wrote down was like, how the fuck is Andres able to shapeshift if only Tamlin has the gift? And then Lucian explains, oh no, he
Yeah.
can like shapeshift other people. What if when we see Lucian in pretty much like from when Elaine gets turned into a fae onward, what if that's not Lucian? What if that is Tamlin? Here's how the theory goes. And there may already be a TikTok about this already posted. Go check out our TikTok.
Oh, this is such an insane theory, bro.
But it works, dude.
Oh
It
my
works.
god.
Okay. We know Tamlin for sure can shapeshift, right? When Elaine comes out of that cauldron, Lucian, I think, covered for Tamlin. And this would not be the first time he did it. Because, do you remember in this book, when Rhys comes to the Spring Court and they glamour Feyre and hide her in like the curtains or whatever, and Rhys realizes, oh, there's another person here. Who is it? Feyre comes out and Lucian says, oh, this is my betrothed. So
Yeah.
he's already covered for, not in a Bond way, but he's already proven he covers for Tamlin
Yeah.
when he's getting into some dicey territory with his love life, right?
Yeah.
What if Tamlin shapeshifted into Lucian to go to the Night Court because they knew, like, there's no way, and Lucian covered for him, like, Lucian as Lucian with the King of Hybern said, like, oh, I'm mate, that's my mate, right? Like,
Yeah.
he somehow sensed there was a bond between Elaine and Tamlin, covered for Tamlin, right? But Tamlin actually goes back to the Night Court because they know, like, there's no way they're gonna allow Tamlin to go with Elaine. Like, there's just no fucking way, let alone
No.
go with Elaine to the Night Court. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why, because a lot of people who like to poke holes in this theory that, Tamlin and Elaine are not mates, love to point out that in, I think, ACOTAR, there's a moment where Lucian and Elaine are sitting with each other, and Elaine goes, what was that tug? And Lucian says, oh, I tugged at the bond, right? Well, if that's Tamlin,
Yeah.
that's how he did it.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. Pretty much from end of Wings and Ruin, I want to say, definitely by Frost and Starlight onward, we only see Tamlin in beast form.
Oh god.
I have a feeling Tamlin can make himself look like whoever, like animal or fae or other forms, I guess, but we don't know if he can glamour other people as anything except animals. We know for a fact he can glamour his friends as animals because he did it with Andres. And it's very convenient that Tamlin's beast form just so happens to look very similar to how he glamours Andres in this book. They're kind of like wolf-like creatures. So what if Tamlin in Frost and Starlight and Silver Flames in beast form isn't Tamlin? That's Lucian.
Dude.
I think it's possible, at least.
Okay. I think it's possible. Few questions.
Yes.
One, at the
Mhm.
High Lord meeting then, why is he such a
That-
raging asshole?
Mm,
This is where I actually think that Mama Maas could do something pretty magical. And
yeah.
where I think that your theory could still be correct. I could see there being some like weird thing where he's such a raging ass because he's, the King of Hybern doesn't like believe him anymore, so he has to like play some
Right.
role at the High Lord meeting. Or,
Yeah.
like I think there could be kind of an interesting Mama Maas magic that could make that High Lord meeting like make sense.
Or maybe, because one thing I just realized is we do see Tamlin as like Fae Tamlin a lot in Wings and Ruin. So that's probably
Yeah.
actually Tamlin. So what if the switch doesn't happen until like maybe end of Wings and Ruin or like beginning of Frost and Starlight, where like Tamlin and Lucien do like a fucking Freaky Friday, right?
Yeah.
What if the reason he's such a raging ass is he's been away from his mate for so long?
Yeah,
Because we know that's a thing. Like they
that
don't.
is a thing.
So like fucking Fourth Wing, where like
Yeah.
the dragon
Yeah,
mates
yeah, yeah,
can't be
yeah.
away from each other too
Can't be
long. Like
far away.
they can't. Maybe that's why. Because also like a lot of people point to he fucking helps them rescue Elaine from the
Yeah.
war camp in Wings and
Yeah.
Ruin.
Yeah. He does.
I
Uh,
look.
I
We're
mean,
gonna as we read through, we're gonna see how strong this theory is, but
yeah,
I think it's at least a possibility.
I do too. We've seen her do it before. In Throne of Glass, there are 2 books that are supposed to be
Yes.
happening at the exact same time.
I've thought
I
about that too.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if we get a book that, I mean, you've brought it up of like maybe the next book is happening at the same time as Silver Flames,
Yeah. Or
or
a previous book.
or a previous book, or we just get like a flashback moment in some book. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't put it past her.
Could you imagine a tandem read with Wings and Ruin, but from like Tamlin's perspective?
Oh my
That would
god.
be insane.
Slash potentially even more painful.
Yeah. I do want to get back to this book, and I specifically want to get back to one of my favorite characters in the entire series gets brought up, and it is my gossip queen, the Serial. I just love the cult following that the
Oh yeah.
Serial has.
Yeah.
Like, and
The
it's
tea.
so well earned. The tea, like, it's so well earned. And I will say, and again, like, I only read these books last year, so I don't know what it was like reading in real time as these books came out, but like, I feel a huge part of the reason why the Serial is so beloved, aside from the whole like stay with the High Lord, oh, not that High Lord, thing, but just truly one of the saddest moments in the entire
Oh
series
my
when the Serial
god.
dies.
Dude.
That was only one of 2 moments in the series I cried.
For you to go from being really terrified of this creature, of this being, to kind of like totally being into Feyre continuously capturing this Surreal so she can get answers,
Yep.
to then straight up sobbing
Yep.
because this thing is dying. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's incredible. It's just a testament to her writing. I've been
Yeah.
seeing some people like dissing, Sarah J Maas's like vocabulary. And I'm just sitting here being like, I don't give a fuck. The characters that she has created and the relationships that you feel towards these characters, and the fact that there are millions of us who feel this way about
Yeah.
these characters is fucking insane, bro. It is insane. So like, and the Surreal is just a perfect example of just
Yeah.
like, honestly, a character you see like 3 times, 4 times throughout the series,
And you feel so deeply for.
and when you're with him or them, I'm gonna say them because I don't feel like there's really a
Yeah.
gender there,
Yeah.
but when you're with them, I think 'cause also it really how Feyre ends up treating the Surreal is another kind of moment of you loving Feyre even more too, because it's just like, she potentially sacrifices her life to be able to help the Surreal or like the cloak or like all these different things. But it's just like the Surreal is just such a chaotic queen who really just wants some fucking chicken and a cloak, man. And we love them for it.
Do you know what it reminds me of is like, do you remember how the gay community embraced the Babadook years ago?
Oh, I forgot about that.
It reminds me of that, of like, it's become this accidental, like I feel the Surreal is like very queer coded. Like
100%.
such a gossip queen, like needs to know all the fucking tea and then immediately spills it. Like, but in the most like chaotic way possible. Like truly
Oh,
like
yeah.
stay with the High Lord. Hee. Like,
Yeah. Not gonna tell you which one. Okay, so cereal. Love the cereal.
Yes. First off, always forgot. Like I always forget how scary the bog is.
Dude, so scary.
Yeah. The bog is such a perfect foreshadowing and metaphor for what is to come of Tamlin and Feyre's relationship. Like, because the whole thing is it says or Lucien tells her, the reason you can't look at it is because once you look at it, it becomes real. The second she starts looking at their fucking problems as a couple, it becomes too real. And she's like, fuck, I fucked up. I shouldn't be with him.
Holy shit. Yeah.
and better yet, she says in the chapter, I heard its voice in my head. It told me to look. That's her gut. It's her gut looking, saying, look at this, look at this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. You could almost go bigger and be like, it's an overall metaphor for like toxic relationships in general.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Which is, I mean, it's basically what you're saying of just like, you know, once you really take a look and you really.
You have to do a lot of self-assessment.
Yeah, that's a pretty crazy foreshadowing for her to like put in so early, actually.
And it makes sense why the bog wouldn't be in any of the other books.
Fuck, Ariel.
Because she looks.
God damn it. Look at you. Look at her. Look at her.
This is when I'm in my element.
This is when she's in her element, guys. Just, wow.
I love it.
I'm kind of shooketh because it's like a really good point. I mean, I was about to say whether she intended to or not, but like this one doesn't feel like you're grasping too far to make this one work.
No.
Like this one just like makes sense. I always took the bog as kind of the concept of like almost like Bryaxis.
Yeah.
Of this idea of like when you look at it, it's going to turn into like your biggest like fear. But I'm realizing even now that's not really what this creature is. This creature is it's what you said of like it is not tangible until you really look at it.
Yeah.
And yeah, wow, that's wow.
It's funny because like once you got me into romantasy, it was kind of this thing of like, why the fuck haven't I been into this for like ever?
Yeah, I know.
And it especially hit me because I'm like, well, of course I'm into this because I love horror, and horror and fantasy are so linked. And like it's moments like this, right? Because like horror, like the monsters and whatnot that you have in horror are all symbolic of people's fears, right? Like it's all symbolism, and it's the same thing, slightly different with fantasy, right? Like you have moments like this that are very horror moments where it's like this is the embodiment of fear, but then you have like other things that are like metaphors for, you know, in romantasy we're mostly talking about love, right? Like they're all symbolic. I mean, this is why I'll try not to go on too much of a rant. This is why I'm such a proponent of genre, right? Like I am a genre buff. Like I love drama and comedy, don't get me wrong, but like I can't sink my teeth into them as much as I do other genres because it's like genre is so symbolic and metaphoric of things in life that it's hard for people to process unless they're wrapped in some kind of metaphor, right? And Sarah J Maas is just such a master of that with all of her series.
Yeah, I mean it's what we've said before of just everything's intentional. And what's cool is that your experience is not less if you don't clock that the bog could be a metaphor for a toxic relationship. It is not. It's almost a lot like the sound you were talking about. That bass level that you play that people can't hear, but they can feel it. And it's almost that same idea of that it's like you may not clock this metaphor about the bog, but you'll feel the discomfort. You'll feel this fear of like, oh, so looking at it makes it real. So keep it to the side. Don't look at it straight on. You're going to feel the discomfort no matter what. And your reading experience, you'll still get the important things out of the story that you need. But it's also why it's such a joy to actually reread.
Right. You feel it on a deep level. It's kind of, it's not quite archetype, but it's like parallel in a way to archetype. You know what I mean? Like you understand. I mean, this is what storytelling is, right? Like whether it's like smutty fae fiction or like religion, right? Like which, you know, not for nothing, Sarah J Maas, I've said it before, she minored in religion, right? Like it is all symbolic of real things that people go through, but we have to again wrap it up in some kind of pretty package
Yeah.
to be able to fully process it. Because I mean, and the bog is a perfect example. Like Feyre
Yeah.
can't she can't look in the eye the fact
Yeah.
that like this is a toxic relationship. So
Yeah.
this fucking creepy creature has to come by and be like, "Look at me, I will
Yeah.
eat your flesh." Like,
Yeah.
you know? So, ugh,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
I love it. I love watching you go off about this kind of stuff. I think it's so cool. I mean, the amount of like mind broadening or different like nooks and crannies that you've gotten me to look at things over the years is just like always something that I will like forever cherish because it's so cool.
All this to say, like, this is what genre can do, and I
Yeah.
think this is what fantasy in particular, especially romantasy. I think romantasy is very special in that it's not only taking you to a different world, but it's talking about love,
Yeah.
which is a universal concept, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people I've been seeing get really into romantasy, especially lately. And I think it's because of authors like Sarah J Maas and Rebecca Yarros and whatnot, who are especially women and people who aren't cisgender men, although seeing a lot of cisgender men too getting really into
Yeah.
romantasy, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But it's like allowing them to reclaim parts of their sexuality, I think,
Mm.
and their just love life in general.
Yeah.
And I think that's really fucking like seeing how many couples are like, it usually starts off as like, if we're talking straight couples here, like the woman will start reading ACOTAR or like
Yeah.
Fourth Wing or whatever, and then we'll get her husband into it. And like, I mean, literally happened with me and David, right?
Yeah.
Like he's reading Crescent City right now. Like it's been so cool seeing that and like seeing people's journeys with that and them getting to reclaim this beautiful part of themselves, right?
Yeah.
Through symbolism. So that was a long tangent on genre, but all to say genre's fucking rad and we need it. And
Yeah.
the literary snobs need to stop shitting on it, honestly.
As someone who's been pretty obsessed with the science fiction genre and then the fantasy
Mm,
genre for most of her life, I've never understood this sort of like looking down on the like genre specific stuff because I'm just like, do you not realize like what most like the amount of like social discussion that is happening in these fantasy books in early science fiction writing?
especially science fiction.
It's actually kind of insane some of the things they got
Yeah,
away with writing about. And it's
right.
just like I don't understand. I'll never understand people being like hoity-toity about it because I'm just like I learned more about the world and people through the science fiction and fantasy books I read than I feel like I learned like at school.
Yeah, I truly can't think of a single science fiction, whether it's a series or a movie or a show, that isn't commentary.
I don't know how you do it, how it wouldn't be.
Yeah, romantasy, fantasy, science fiction, it's great.
That is to say, I think it's pretty incredible that that metaphor that you were able to see with the bog and I think it is because of your closeness to genre. That's really fascinating. And it's really funny too because the rest of this chapter
Yeah.
is like pretty fluffy. And then fucking Tamlin is just all pissed off because she went on a fucking horseback ride. And it's just because it's just like, bro, why are
Yeah.
you this mad? A lot like the beast. He has like not a lot of control, like at all. He needs a therapist.
I was gonna say men will truly do anything except go to therapy.
Honestly. Because at first I
Yeah.
could see him being upset because maybe he thinks like something's like she's hurt or something because he doesn't know who
Sure.
she is. Then once he finds out that she's with Lucien, it's like,
It's like
why are you mad? Like, in my mind, any mature man would be like, oh, this is like a good sign that she's hanging out with Lucien.
the key word there being mature. Like he's not mature. He is a 500-year-old man baby.
Oh my God.
Like
Seriously. You're just like, bro, come on. But then, like, I don't know, also being reminded of how powerful he is, that he can kill the bog is like pretty crazy. And like, I
yeah.
do actually weirdly really love this. Like, I know we said it in the non spoiler section, but like, this portion of Feyre, like, waiting up for him to come home is so
Yes.
real. It's so
Yes.
real. And it's so cute. Obviously, she sees her dad. Obviously, we know it's
Right.
not her dad. So when she has that creature moment in the garden,
What
is
we think that
is
is.
it this same I can't remember. Is it this same creature, or do we just think it's the other
I think it's the other.
people on the estate that she's
I
been
think it's the other
glamored not to
servants.
see? Okay.
Yeah, because and the reason why is they giggle. That's
Yeah.
not the bog. But
Yeah.
I think Sarah J Maas is trying to make us think it is,
Mm,
because it's a red herring,
right.
right? Like,
Totally.
she wants us to think it's the bog because we don't know yet that there's other fucking which I know we'll get to it, but again, just another point not in Tamlin's favor is like
Yeah.
such an invasion of
Why
privacy.
did he do that? Like, because and, like, what I mean, I think doesn't Alice say, like, "We didn't wanna, like, frighten you," or
Right,
something?
but it's like he glamored Alice and, like, the servants she does see to not look like themselves, like, they look
Selves.
a little more, like, human, like, so why didn't he just do that to the rest of them? Like, it's so
Yeah.
weird.
Well, it's also this whole thing where he, like and obviously, like, it's gonna be funny when we do get to it because he, like, glamours, like, how beautiful he is
Right.
because he's just, like, doesn't which, like, when Sarah J. Maas, when we get to that point and she does describe, like, the beauty of everything, Feyre
Yeah.
does kind of have this, like, "Yeah, no, this is, like, a little too much, like, to
Right,
handle."
right. Yeah.
Um, but it does kind of go into Tamlin's character where he makes all these decisions for Feyre and this assumption of how she's gonna react, how she's gonna just navigate with some of these things with giving her no space to, like, grow. And it's
Yep.
just it's a totally a foreshadowing of, like, how he ends up treating her in the second book.
I'm about to say something potentially controversial. I don't think Tamlin was actually in love with Feyre. I think he was in love with the idea of Feyre.
I actually completely agree with you.
He created this image of who he thinks she
Yeah.
is based on what he wants and what he needs, but that's not actually who Feyre is.
No.
Whereas Reese loves and accepts Feyre for who like, he falls deeper in love with her
The
when she's
more
like,
she, like yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
like, the more she
So
finds herself, the more he's like, "Oh my god." Yeah.
it's a very relatable thing, I think, with Tamlin, because we have either been the Feyre in that relationship or we've been the Tamlin in that relationship, or we've
Mm.
been both. And let me tell you, pretty sure I've been both
Yeah. No,
at a
I
point
think
in
I
my
have
life.
been too. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I'm not even necessarily gonna fault him totally, because I think it's I know, surprise, shock. I think it's something that we all do at some point, and I think it's just I think we do it because there's so many, not just expectations, but so many, like, I don't even know what the word is, but like, what I guess, yeah, what we expect love to be
Mm.
based on society,
Mhm.
right? Based on what society has taught us, based on what culture has taught us.
Yeah.
And I think that creates that type of environment, right?
Totally.
A- And then we experience hopefully what real love is and go, "Oh, that actually doesn't fit in at all with the literal fairy tale
Yeah.
expectations,"
Yeah.
right? Real love involves going through some darkness. That's why do you think she ends up in the night court?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, I guess it's funny because I don't think that she is making a very interesting social commentary on this idea of fairy tale and, like, how
oh,
dangerous
absolutely.
it is to fantasize about it and to want it and how you can get yourself caught in a situation. I think you and I have kind of discussed, like, some of the people who, like, still love Tamlin. Like,
Yep.
we kind of have talked about it, like, maybe it's because they're still with their Tamlin.
Yeah, I think, the classic fairy tale ending, we see it in like every fucking Disney movie, right? Disney cartoon movie is the princess ends up with the
Yeah.
prince and they get married and they ride off into the sunset
Happily ever after.
and happily ever after. And the magic trick, the joke that Sarah J. Maas does is they almost do that, and literally seconds before doing it, Farrah's, like, in her head thinking, "Get me the fuck out of here," and then Reese comes
Yeah.
and saves her
Yeah.
from making the biggest mistake of her life.
Yeah.
And, my brain's on a roll here. I wonder if this is why in all of her series, because it's not just ACOTAR, mating bonds surpass marriage.
Yeah.
Like marriage is because, in our world, I'm sure in their worlds as well, marriage was originally a financial contract, right? Women had dowries. There are some countries where women still have dowries,
Yeah.
right? It was a financial arrangement for the longest, like up until the last century,
Yeah.
basically. Whereas a mating bond is a soul contract.
Yeah.
It is two souls who are meant to be together, coming together, finding each other finally,
Yeah.
and wanting to be with each other in that world and maybe some other worlds. um and there's something really beautiful about that.
Oh, yeah.
And so much more modern than, and this is, look, I'm a married gal myself.
Yeah.
Like, I think marriage is beautiful when it's the marriage the marriage between marriage and a soul contract,
Well, I mean, when
basically.
you feel like you're with your mate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
I mean, I also think that's why to many of us the concept of mates is so much more attractive.
Yeah.
I think also mates are an attractive concept because there's no questioning it.
No.
There's n
Well, there are with some because
Yeah.
I think it's Reese's parents were
Reese's
mates.
parents were mates, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Fair.
And then
That
we're
brings up a very good point.
seeing with Lucian and Elaine.
Oh,
But then that
goodness.
begs the question. I have a feeling we're gonna get some big like change in ACOTAR 6 where it turns out like, oh, maybe Reese's parents weren't mates, and like we're gonna find out like, no, mating bonds, like you always end up like
In
with your,
love.
yeah, like it truly is that. And like maybe like, I don't know, like there was some kind of propaganda or something out there that was like, you have to be with this I don't know, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But
Yeah.
um yeah, I'm interested. Like, I do think we're gonna get something really big in ACOTAR 6 that just changes the game for a lot.
I mean, it would be very on brand for her to do that.
On that note, as we said in the last episode, the non-spoiler episode, your chapters next week are chapters 11 through 13. But this was fun.
Yeah. All right, friends. As always, you're welcome.
And we're sorry. Bye.